Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you a new episode of Sentai Origins. And how you doing today, Raptor? Oh yeah, Raptor's here. I didn't tell you guys that. I think they knew you were going to be here.
Still a bit worn out because sake ononde sugita last night.
So those of you who are Japanese will be able to understand that. I, on the other hand, will move on. So, Raptor, we just watched JAKQ Blitzkrieg Squad.
Yes, or Dengekitai. It's Dengekitai. Yes.
I like Blitzkrieg better because...
Yeah, Blitzkrieg's it's a fun word. And
this was the first episode of JAKQ that we watched. So, like we did with Go Ranger, let's kind of give you an overall impression of it. The plot is really simple enough. Basically, there's a crime organization named... Crime. Led by Iron Claw, who is not Dr. Claw, unfortunately.
No, he looks like some kind of bizarre parody of Genghis Khan.
Yes. Who is basically trying to turn Tokyo and seems like a few other cities into crime cities. So he's not for world domination.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, whatever that means. So he doesn't seem like he's a character for world domination as much as he is for financial gain and just overall criminal behavior. And there's a guy who is referred to as Joker, who creates a squad, the JAKQ Squad, and, you know, they fight crime, basically, is what this is. But the twist is that the JAKQ characters are cyborgs.
Yeah, which is a very which really makes them unique amongst all the Sentai teams.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically the premise is that they volunteer themselves to become cyborgs in order to fight against crime, and some of them need these cybernetic implants, such as Karen, the Heart Queen. She loses her arm in this first episode and needs a cybernetic replacement.
In addition, Green is in a car accident.
His car blew up.
Yeah, his car blew up, and
we can rebuild him.
He didn't really volunteer for that. They just did it.
Yeah, we rebuild him. We made him stronger, and we used less than $6 million. Seriously, this is kind of like the Bionic Man meets Super Sentai.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and so let's just talk about our characters a little bit and the interesting things that we saw. First of all, this is the second series to have a skyship. What's interesting about this one is that their transformation chambers are in the skyship. They don't have henshin devices. They don't just randomly transform like the Go Rangers did. They have to get into these chambers and be infused with the power, basically.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing because each JAKQ is whatever.
JAKQ, yeah.
Draws power from a different energy source.
Atomic, electricity, gravity, and magnetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I do find it odd that the Red Ranger, or Spade Ace in this case, is atomic, that the leader is atomic.
Yeah. I wonder if that pressed 8 buttons by having a Japanese man infused with radiation.
Yes, because as we have studied in several Japanese classes, that atomic energy is kind of bad, for a way to put it, to the Japanese culture. For those of you who read Black Rain.
Yeah,
That's why Godzilla was the villain to begin with, because he was atomic-based.
Yeah, it's... Okay, so I'm not going to dwell too much time on this, but in anime, there is a strange taboo against nuclear weapons. There will be weapons that are comparable in power to a nuke, but they will be explicitly referred to as not nuclear.
And I can see the Japanese point of view on it, so it is kind of odd that your hero of the series, the leader of the series, is powered by nuclear energy. That's not necessarily brought up in this episode. They just state that he is, but it doesn't mean anything.
And it doesn't really reflect in his powers either.
Yeah, and again, that might be something later down the line that they would explore. But as far as the first episode is concerned, that wasn't brought up. It wasn't a big deal. The big deal was the cybernetic enhancements, because here's the weird thing. They're not really a superhero team as much as they are Batman, like maybe Batman Inc. or something, because they are using their powers to track down criminals in this episode.
Yes, yes.
There was like one of them had X-ray vision, the other had a jackknife that came out of his hand. Heart Queen used some ability to track the truck. I forget exactly what that was. It was like magnetic, something like her fingers stuck into the ground and she could tell how much the truck weighed. And then they got him back into the sky ship and was able to track it based on its weight, I think.
Yeah, I don't think we were getting actual science out of that.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about the characters real quick.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to kind of run down what we know about these characters, and I want your impressions. Spade Ace is basically Michael Phelps of the 1970s. He's good in everything: skiing, jumping, running, horseback riding. So, premier athlete. That's why they wanted him. The Blue Ranger, Dijak, very interesting because he was a boxer, fled the country, got involved in some shady dealings, and that's how he's introduced in the episode, is that he's in handcuffs, which I think is really interesting. That it's
the start of the Sentai anti-heroes.
Yeah, and thing is, he's not really a criminal. He's done some bad things. They assumed he was the killer, but they found the actual killer that he was kind of linked with. Heart Queen, she's a police detective, and the way she loses her arm in this is that her and her father are out celebrating his 25 years on the force. They get into a car accident which was caused by crime, and her father dies, and she's in this whole body bandage cast thing, and she has her right arm gone. I mean, they didn't really play up the drama for that, but geez, when you sit and think about it, not only do you lose your father and your right arm, it's like Speedy from the comics. It's almost the same thing when you think about it, except no hallucinations of a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Clover King, he shows up in a box in this episode.
Yeah, he does not speak in his introduction.
Yeah, the weird thing is we had to go back and replay this episode where they introduce him, because they showed that he's in a box. They ask what happened to him. He's like, well, his car blew up.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. And then Joker has flashbacks to him working on like battleships or something like that. And then suddenly, the three of them, Jack, Queen, King, are all getting the cybernetic enhancements, basically.
Yeah. So it's interesting to compare this to watching Go Ranger, like when we previously did.
Which had no introduction for the characters in the sense that we knew what their occupation was, but we didn't know the motivations or anything behind it. But in this, we understand the characters. We understand at least Pink and Blue Ranger's motivations. I'm hoping Clover King would get some development later. And Spade Ace he was in it to where it's like, I don't want to harm my body that my parents gave me, I think was his line and all that. But then he's like, he changes his tune for no real reason, which is odd because everybody rejects the offer, but then they come back and say, like, yeah, I'll do it anyway.
Yeah, typically in a Sentai or a Power Ranger series, you'd have the people who jump at the call to adventure.
Yeah.
And then you usually have one or two who refuse the call.
And that's what Joseph Campbell would call the threshold point.
Yes. But yeah, in this one, everyone refuses it, but they come back around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Without explanation, too.
Yeah, no, the Pink Ranger didn't take any, extra... I mean, she lost her arm. There's her motivation. I wonder if she would have done it still if her father wasn't dead and she didn't need the cybernetic enhancements,
Yeah.
And it almost seems like they probably did it against Green's wishes, but it seemed to me like he was dead and they were, like, reviving him in a way. That's the way it played to me.
Yeah, that's... And also, this is worth mentioning, Big One, who is...
the leader, in a way, later on.
Yeah, he doesn't show up until the 20-something episode.
And this is a series that only has 35 episodes. It's the shortest Sentai, unless you count a Kiba Ranger.
I count a Kiba Ranger.
That's why I said you. And then, let's talk about Joker real quick. This guy is a nut. Because, first of all, the first scene he's in, he's got a hamster or gerbil walking around his shoulder, then on his arm. he played pretty straight throughout the rest of the episode as far as recruiting everybody
Yeah,
and
the
stuff.
gerbil was weird because he is delivering his line completely
Straight, yeah.
straight faced, as if he's supposed to be a calm authority figure, but he's got a gerbil crawling around on
Which does not appear after the first scenes he's in, but when we see him again in the Jakka base, he looks like the deposed dictator of a island nation.
Yeah.
He's wearing the yellow suit and the glasses and stuff. And it's
dressed
wow.
like someone who would be a villain in a different show.
I know. I mean, he looks like a 60s era Batman villain. Or that he actually looks like the dictator from The Dictator, you know?
Oh, you mean, yeah.
Yeah, it was just so weird to see that. And may I point out that it was really cool, the Nintendo playing card.
Yeah, that's a fun little bit of history if you watch the episode yourselves. You might think it's a little strange to see playing cards with Nintendo on them, but prior to Nintendo getting into the video game business,
they were a big card company making not only trading cards, but like playing cards, yeah.
Yeah, they also dabbled in love hotels at one point.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's swept under the rug. And
another thing I want to go ahead and point out is the villains. We don't learn anything about the Iron Claw too much, except his motivations and not his motivations, but the plot basically. I love how he has his own fleet of like helicopter jets that come out of a mountain hideaway, which is awesome. I mean, that sounds like a James Bond story right there, which I think these two seasons draw a lot of inspiration off of.
Yeah, while Go Ranger took a lot more direct inspiration from things like James Bond
and was more like G.I. Joe in its concept, I think.
This is more like the $6 Million Man. This is more a sci-fi show.
Exactly, and I do want to say about the grunts real quick. Is just like in Go Ranger, they are normal men who are signed up for this criminal organization. Not only do these guys actually murder civilians in the episode with guns, which I'm still shocked at to see that, but two, they go wee. They're like wee.
Yeah, which is something that would appear on a lot of later Sentai foot soldiers, but
it looks like they were having fun.
Yeah, but oftentimes when Sentai foot soldiers have a verbal tick like that, they're not humans.
Yeah, and I did read somewhere that some of these guys did come over from the Black Cross, like when they later established the Go Ranger connection. I did remember, I read something like that. Maybe I'm wrong, but it would make sense since they're humans, because they do that in a lot of shows, like where the soldiers would go into the next criminal organization and stuff like that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So, Raptor, I think we kind of went down to all the quick basics. I hate this YouTube restriction right now. But before we end here today, what do you want to say about JAKQ as a whole?
Yeah, it looks like it was interesting. I would have liked to see more.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. For 35 episodes, I'm sure there isn't too much story arc. But I'm sure it would be interesting to have your attention and all that, because the characters seem well-defined. They seem like interesting characters. And I would definitely want to see more of that.
Yeah, I really enjoy the cyborg angle. It gives the characters something to set them apart from what came before them and what came after.
Absolutely, because I don't think we've had any cyborgs since then. I don't think so. But for the whole team to be cyborgs,
not in Sentai. We've had the occasional cyborg in Power Rangers.
Yes. Well, guys, that's what we have to say about JAKQ and all that. Wish we had more time to go ahead and talk. Raptor, thank you for coming again and watching the episode with me, and then we will bring more Sentai Origins when they come available. But thank you guys for listening. Have a good night, and the tavern is now closed.